So there's a YouTuber named Oates who produces some bizarre content. And this is one of her videos in which she tries to argue against William Lane Craig's objection to homosexual marriage. As you go through this video, you will see two important things. Firstly, building up of a narrative. And secondly, in the whole video, we will see that there is some attempt to find a middle ground, but that is not actually achieved. The points that validate Craig's argument are taken up, but left subsequently. So gear up and let's watch the video.
Hey everyone! So as a bit of a follow-up to my last video, today I want to talk to you about marriage, but before that, I'm going to introduce you to my little helper for the day. His full name is Sir Thomas Claude Barrington, but you can call him Tommy. Isn't he a little cutie with his little bow tie? He's so smart. Isn't he a little cutie with his little bow tie? He's so smart. Isn't he a little cutie with his little bow tie?
Isn't he a little cutie with his little bow tie? He's so smart.
I think we should return back to the video. She first takes up William Lane Craig's video in which he expresses his views about the whole thing.
I think that if the United States ratifies same-sex marriage, it will have so fundamentally redefined what marriage is that it will be a cultural watershed for this country and represent just a further drift away from traditional values. She's not dealing with the issue that I think is even more fundamental, namely that marriage, by its very nature, is a union that is heterosexual. There is no such thing as a same-sex marriage. It is essentially a heterosexual union.
So this video by William Lane Craig forms the main context of our video. Keep in mind the points raised by Craig. Also keep in mind the 2 points that I raised earlier. We will see how these points that I raised are justified as she tries to answer Craig's objections.
And these statements did get me thinking a lot, particularly all the way back to when I was studying sociology at A-level.
Sociology, now you know, this is gonna be interesting.
It was one of my favourite subjects and one of my favourite modules, which I got full marks in. Just gonna throw that out there.
Why I'm not surprised.
So one of my favourite modules was about the family and relationships in society.
Before we go any further, see one thing. Most of the sociology today involves deconstructionism. Basically, they try to look how the society is and was and how it developed by deconstructing it. Deconstruction, by its very nature, involves use of something which is called a key. A key is brought about by referring to some objective finding or principle to which all can agree. Generally, in practice, deconstruction is done by using an ideology, and in this case, we are talking about some leftist ideology. As you see the video, you will see her bringing some interesting points to which all sides on the spectrum can agree. However, instead of attributing them to realist notions and carrying that argument forward, she will give into relativism. And the whole purpose of relativism is not to forward relativism. Relativism is just used as a tool to argue for a specific case. What case that may be? Well, as you watch the video, you will find out for yourself.
We didn't quite go into the history, of marriage in the same amount of detail as I'm going to go into today, but one of the big ideas that we covered repeatedly throughout the module and throughout other modules as well was this idea of nature versus nurture, which I'm sure is something you've all thought about or learnt about at some point. So in the context of family, for example, yes, humans have certain biological reasons for forming groups. People have certain biological urges to have kids and reproduce. The brain subconsciously recognises the difference between in and out group members, we naturally feel empathy for others, and so on. So for this reason, it can be said that we form groups or families or relationships for a natural biological reason. However, the idea of a natural family group in name and as it is defined is definitely a social construct.
There is a biological reason for forming families, and I think she will agree to this, because she exclusively refers to babies. However, you see, then she says that it is most definitely a social construct. And it is an amazing stance. There is a biological reason, which means that there is a realist notion attached to formation of families. Then how it can be called a social construct? Maybe she uses the term to refer to those things that might have a realistic basis but are formed and expanded on by the society. There is no problem with the definition, as long as she remembers that she defined it that way and thus addresses the realist notions attached to the social construct. In her view, social construct is now rendered an umbrella term. It consists of those things that are justified in reality and those things that are not justified in reality. By putting those in similar category, Rachel raises suspicion that she will attempt to ignore the former in favor of the latter. But this is what we will have to see. By setting it up with constructs that can be arbitrary or particular to specific history or culture, she will put it in the basket of society where she will batter any reality subsumed therein. By excluding biology from the purview of the discussion, you can expect that the triad of relativist contentions, cause, majority, and rights, are given a run to perspective specifically adopted to ignore points in these fields. The view is alarming. It ignores in same breath Plato or Kant's standard of morality. It basically is progressive paradise, when all that is on the hierarchical top is brought to the same plane as bottom and then demolished underneath self-made perspectives guided by zeal and emotions and progressive agenda. To get a grasp of what I am saying, just imagine, she is an atheist. She may believe that religion or organized religion is a social construct passed down by the society. Humans do not have a natural tendency to believe in religion, she may believe, and no ontological truth is possible from it. When it interferes with progressive agenda, it is an enemy. On what merits will she make that distinction and decision is decided by herself, and to what extent she chooses. The great disintegration of religion will begin, reminiscent of times of Marx and Stalin, as Marx sought to equalize the society. The end goal may be different. For Marx, religion was the stronghold of class-based distinction and is a big enemy for communism. However, the underlying thought appears to be same. The measure is achieved radically, as oppressors are generally reluctant to give away their privilege. The relics that are sign of reality must be hidden or destroyed to prevent emancipation of obvious. What has stopped being of value can be dispensed away with, sometimes by using force and sometimes by tearing down statues. As we move further, you will see that she actually uses social constructivism to forward her notion, completely forgetting the realist notion attached to it, to which she agreed in the first place.
As is marriage. Another example would be childhood.
Listen to it very carefully and remember as we move on further. She says that childhood is a social construct. This is an important observation.
In different parts of the world and throughout different times in history, the definition of what childhood is has changed. I touched on this in another one of my videos, and a lot of people were quick to jump on and say, no, childhood is biological. But I'd like to put a slightly different argument forwards.
Here you can see her relativism in action. She says that different societies over different periods of time have believed childhood to end at different ages, and thus it is a social construct. Now just think about it. If it is a social construct, can childhood begin at age of 40 and end at age of 60? Or can it begin at age of 60, which is the age of senescence, or as currently thought to be, and end at ages of 80, 90, till death? Now many libertarians watching the video will be thinking why homosexuality and homosexual marriage is a big deal, and that is a fair enough point. However, there is a slight problem. Forced acceptance of false equality does not eliminate differentiability in real life. That differentiability will pop once in a while. What do you do with the dissidents? What do you make of them? This is the key question. Now it is true that in a truly libertarian society, many of the concerns of people on both sides will vanish, as each individual will be free in his or her own domain. The question, however, is still significant, as the libertarian stance does not preclude societal attitudes. The framework still requires that question be answered, just with less emotionality, because the result, at least at legal level, is set in stone, with a little chance of variability. As the intro comes to an end, we can deduce at least something. Craig's first 2 points have held and seem to be accepted, at least prima facie, by Rachel. It is about redefinition of marriage, and it is a slippery slope. Why a slippery slope, you may ask? Because any relativist criteria, by its very nature, is less objective than an objective or realist criteria. Society's mood changes as time passes. Extremism is generally the endpoint of our philosophy. History is the best evidence for it, and how seemingly simple principles become radicalized under relativistic ideals. What we need is to find and discover the immutable principles to define society, notions on which we base our premises, and not get hung up on those popularized via media, colleges, movements, and people.